our IT individuals. It is going to be hopefully a great opportunity for us today to have some dialogue and begin discussing some of the issues that we're facing in education. Back in September, was on a leadership team meeting, and Mr. Terry Elliott and I were having a conversation, and he's always bringing up these great concepts and ideas to use in education, and we were talking about it and fiddling around, and the conversation moved more toward some of the frustrating aspects of all of these wonderful opportunities in education via technology, but the frustrating aspects of how a lot of our students cannot utilize or gain access to so many of the great potential ideas and technologies that are out there. So from that conversation, it led to, wouldn't it be a great idea to begin to discuss some of these topics? And in the midst of that conversation, the word Technology Summit evolved. And so from there, we began to talk about, how great would it be to get not only superintendents, IT people, principals into a room and begin to sort of go head on into some of the problems that we see, but not just the problems, all the various opportunities that districts are creating for their students. And then from that, we just began to sort of woodshed the idea, and from there I went to George Wilson and presented him with the idea, and thankfully he liked the idea. And it came with the approach that perhaps we should have a keynote speaker, and specifically Dr. Holliday, our instructional leader for this state. And if you follow him on Twitter, you'll see that he's a very forward-thinking individual. And I said, what a better idea to get him to come and kick off our day. And then from there, enter Ms. Terry Stice, a talented group of planning committee that you'll see here today, and entering in also David Couch. So it's kind of interesting, the bookends of this day. We have Dr. Holliday with us, thankfully, to begin the day, and then we have Mr. David Couch that will be giving our closing remarks. And it's sort of the wonderful meshing of the curriculum aspect and the IT aspect. And the impetus of this day is to begin to develop the conversations about what we need to do and how we can begin to move our districts for the betterment of our students. And feel free to disagree with me on this statement, but I really think that education is at a printing press moment in what we do and how this is going to define what we're providing for the future of our children and our students. We have healthy competition in this room. We have districts sitting next to one another that go toe-to-toe athletically and academically. We spend a lot of time competing with ourselves regionally within districts, and certainly that's healthy, and it drives us, and there's no question that's just part of who we are. And as schools, we want to be the best school we can be. But in the larger picture of things, we all know deep down that in order for our students to compete on the global scale and put them in a position to succeed later on down the road, it's going to take a collaborative effort to begin to provide the type of education they're going to need to go out into the world that awaits them. And much of the world that awaits them is so different than the world that we've known for most of our lives. And so it's about developing a dependence on one another to help face some of the problems that we see, and today largely technologically, and how we can perhaps address what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and what we might be doing better down the road. And we have a talented group of individuals that are going to be presenting today, and hopefully this will begin to develop a collaborative effort, or at least a collaborative conversation on what is to come down the road. So in order to kick us off here, I'd like to just use an illustration, if you will. The wonderful YouTube, okay? So this is the lone nut theory. And you have a gentleman here that I'm going to show you, and this is at a festival. And you're going to see this guy having just a grand old time. So he's out here doing his thing in the midst of this crowd. Not a worry. Having a great time. Enter the lone nut. All right? Some guy across the way says, hey, look at this guy. He has a smartphone most likely. This is going to be great on YouTube. Let's get this up there. So there he is. But here's a pivotal moment. The lone nut is suddenly joined by one brave individual who decides, hey, that looks like a good idea. I think I'm going to join it. So the lone nut has now gone from being this crazy guy being filmed to be, fodder for laughter later to a movement. One brave guy jumps up. Continuation. I'd rather enjoying themselves. You gotta love it. Talent. It's just talent. But notice, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a third brave soul steps up and says, that looks like a great idea. I'm going to join in. Now we have a movement. The movement is solidified. There are 3 of them. The lone nut is no longer lone. And I pose to you that these 2 gentlemen here really are the key elements. Because look what's happening here. All of a sudden, others are building, saying, I think I'm going to join them. That does look like a lot of fun. Looks like a great time. And in the midst of this, you have the initial group, the core group, that begins to say they're onto something. They're onto something. And so this is sort of the first generation. But then it's interesting, of course, as we know what happens. These are the hanger-ons. They don't want to be left out. They don't want to be the ones that didn't join in. So now the movement grows and grows, and you can see here that everyone is saying, hey, maybe we should be a part of this. And then by the end of this video, you have a massive group of people, and then the guy is now filming what seems like something normal. So as we begin our efforts today, hopefully the idea of collaboration, if you ever read, or if you get the chance to read Seth Godin's blog, he had an interesting statement today, and it was about how do we become more dependent. So think about that statement as we go through. I want to thank all of our presenters, Greg and Ms. Terry Stice, for getting things underway. And with that, I will turn us over to Mr. Benny Lau.